The Unsent Truth, Chapter 1, The Echo in the Hand. The silence of the house had become my constant companion. A month since Robert's heart had given out, quietly in his sleep. One moment, a snore. The next, a profound stillness. He was gone, just like that. 42 years. 42 years of shared breaths, shared dreams, shared mornings. And now, just me and the silence. Grief is a strange beast. It claws at your insides, hollows you out, then fills you with a heavy, suffocating emptiness. I move through the days in a fog, guided by muscle memory, making coffee, watering plants, answering the sympathetic whispers of friends and family. Each word a fresh prick, each hug a reminder of the one I craved, the one I would never get again. His old phone. It sat on his bedside table. A relic, really. He'd upgraded months ago, but this one, his old model, still held so much. Pictures, texts, memories. Sarah, our daughter, had suggested I look through it. "Maybe there are some old photos, Mom," she'd said, her voice gentle, as if speaking to a child. From before he got the new one. Sweet memories. Sweet memories. That's what I was looking for. A comfort, a balm for the raw wound of his absence. I picked it up, cold and heavy in my trembling hand. The screen lit up. Robert's wallpaper, a photo of us, taken last summer on our anniversary. Our faces, lined with time but smiling, eyes crinkled with shared laughter. 42 years, a lifetime. I navigated to his messages, a familiar instinct. I wanted to see his last conversations, his last thoughts. Messages to me, to Sarah, to our son David. Messages to his golf buddies, to his colleagues. Mundane, everyday exchanges, just as they should be. I scrolled down, past the familiar names, and then I saw it. A name I didn't recognize. Lydia. No last name, just Lydia. My finger paused. A flicker of curiosity. A new contact? Perhaps a new client or an acquaintance from his volunteer work. But then I saw the tone. The messages weren't professional. They were different. My breath hitched. My heart, already fragile from grief, gave a painful lurch. I tapped on the conversation. The screen filled with words, his words, to her. "Good morning, my son. Thinking of you always, even when I can't be. Our moments are the only ones that truly matter. Wish I could spend every second with you. You are my real, my only true. My real, my only true." The words slammed into me, a physical blow. The air rushed from my lungs. My real, my only true. And I? What was I? A shadow? A convenient fiction? I scrolled down, faster now. A desperate, frantic search for an explanation, for an escape from this nightmare. But there was no escape. The messages continued. An endless stream of tenderness, longing, and intimate affection. Dates stretching back. Weeks, months, years, up until his last days. His last message to her was just 2 days before he died. "Counting the hours until Friday, my love, forever." Forever. I dropped the phone. It clattered on the hardwood floor, the screen still glowing, mocking me with its unbearable truth. The silence in the house, once a comfort, now screamed with accusation. 42 years. All of it, a lie. My world, once solid and immutable, shattered around me. The man I had loved, mourned, glorified, was a stranger, a betrayer. And I, Anne, his devoted wife, had been living a carefully constructed illusion. Chapter 2. The Echo of Deceit. The next few days were a blur of numb disbelief. I picked up the phone, placed it back down, picked it up again, reread the messages. Each time, the words burned deeper, carving new wounds. My mind raced, frantically searching for signs, for clues I must have missed. The business trips, the fishing weekends with his old college buddies, the long evenings at the office. How many times had I waved him off with a smile, a kiss, a packed lunch, truly believing he was where he said he was? How many times had I reassured myself that his occasional moodiness or distant stares were just stress from work? Fool. I was a fool. The rage simmered beneath the surface of my grief, a dangerous, volatile cocktail. I wanted to scream, to smash something, to confront him. But he was gone, and I was left with the wreckage. Sarah called, David called. They worried about me. Are you eating, Mom? Are you sleeping? I lied. I put on a brave face, a performance for my children, who loved their father, who saw him as the pillar of our family, the perfect husband and dad. How could I shatter their world too? How could I tell them their hero was a fraud? I couldn't. Not yet. The shame was suffocating. The humiliation, a bitter taste on my tongue. I had to understand. Before I spoke a word, I had to know her. I searched for Lydia. The phone offered no last name, no address, just a phone number. I typed the number into my own phone. A local area code, not far. Chicago suburbs. A cruel twist of the knife. She was close. Perhaps in the same suburb. How many times had I passed her on the street? How many times had he walked past her, his mind on her, while I waited at home? I resisted the urge to call her. What would I say? What would I gain? Her voice? Her explanation? It would only add more layers to the pain. I needed something tangible. Proof beyond words. I started going through Robert's things, not with the tender nostalgia I'd intended, but with a cold, ruthless determination. His study, his desk, files, drawers. I searched for anything. Letters, another phone, a hidden diary. Nothing. He was meticulous, too meticulous. Everything was in order. Business documents, bills, old photographs, our photographs, happy family portraits. Him holding my hand. Him with his arms around Sarah and David. Lies, all of it. Then I remembered his laptop. He used it mostly for work, for emails, for his investments. He wasn't very tech-savvy, but he had a habit of organizing his files. I found it in his study, closed. I knew his password, our anniversary date. Another ironic twist. I opened it, the screen casting a cold blue glow on my face. I clicked through his documents, his photos. Nothing seemed out of place, until I saw it. A folder, hidden amongst dozens of others, named Reports. A generic, innocuous name. I clicked, and my breath caught again. It wasn't reports. It was photographs. Hundreds of them, of Robert and Lydia. They were everywhere. In parks, at restaurants, on beaches, in different cities, smiling, laughing, holding hands, kissing. My hand flew to my mouth, stifling a sob. A beach, somewhere warm, sunny. Robert with a relaxed, almost youthful smile I hadn't seen on his face in years. His arm around Lydia. Lydia, a woman with warm, kind eyes and a gentle smile. Not a femme fatale, just a woman. A woman who looked deeply in love. Another photo. A mountain trail. Robert, in hiking gear, looking vibrant. Lydia, her hair blowing in the wind, her arm linked through his. These were the weekends he went fishing. These were the conferences he attended. My head spun. The sheer audacity, the deception. He had built an entire parallel life, and I, his wife of 42 years, had been utterly oblivious. How? How could I have been so blind, so trusting? Chapter 3. The Ghost in the Frame. The photographs were a testament to a life lived in secret. They were not fleeting encounters. They were years of shared moments, shared joy. They stretched back at least 10 years. 10 years. A quarter of our marriage. A quarter of my life spent unknowingly in the shadow of this other woman. My children, Sarah and David, they idolized their father. He was their rock, their hero. How could I shatter their world? How could I tell them that the man they loved, the man we mourned, was a cheat, a liar? The thought of revealing this truth, of watching their hearts break, was almost as unbearable as the pain of my own betrayal. But I couldn't unsee it. I couldn't unknow it. The photographs, the messages, they were etched into my mind, burning bright and constant. I showed Sarah the phone. I couldn't bear to look at the laptop screen with her. But the phone, the raw messages, were enough. She read, her face draining of color, her eyes widening in horror. She scrolled, her fingers trembling. Her face, usually so composed, crumpled. "Mom, no," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "This can't be real. Dad, he would never." But the words were there. His words, his name, and her name, Lydia. Tears streamed down her face, not just for me, but for herself, for the shattered image of her father, for the beautiful, untarnished memory of our family. "Who is she, Mom?" Sarah asked, her voice cracking. "Do you know her?" "No," I whispered. "I don't, but I will." Sarah, ever the pragmatist, wiped her tears. "We have to find her. We have to know." We used the information from the photos. Some of the landmarks were identifiable. A particular restaurant in Milwaukee, a small, historic bridge in Madison, Wisconsin, a quaint bed and breakfast in rural Indiana. His business trips often took him through the Midwest. We found Lydia's social media profile, not under the phone number, but through one of the restaurants they'd frequented, a place where people often tagged their location. There she was, Lydia Hayes. Her profile was private, but her profile picture confirmed it. The same woman from the photographs. Her hometown listed as Bloomington, Indiana. Bloomington, not too far from here. A 4-hour drive. My breath caught in my throat. All this time, so close. Sarah, though heartbroken, was my anchor. She was furious, devastated, but also driven by a desperate need for answers. Just like me, she helped me craft a letter. We decided a letter was better than a call. Less confrontational, more controlled. We tried to be careful, gentle. We didn't want to accuse. We wanted to understand. Dear Lydia Hayes, the letter began. My name is Ann Miller. I am Robert Miller's wife. I recently found correspondence between you and Robert, and I am writing to you because I need to understand. I need to know the truth. I am not writing to condemn, but to comprehend. If you are willing, I would like to meet with you in a neutral place to talk. We included my phone number. We debated whether to include a photo of Robert and I to solidify the truth of my identity. We decided against it. Let her come to us. Let her acknowledge what she knew. We mailed the letter, and then we waited. The waiting was excruciating. Every day, every hour felt like an eternity. The grief was still there, but now it was laced with a raw, burning anger. A desperate hunger for the truth. Chapter 4. Two Sides of a Secret. A week later, my phone rang. An unfamiliar number. An Indiana area code. My heart leaped into my throat. I answered, my voice a mere whisper. Hello? A woman's voice, hesitant but clear. Is this Ann Miller? Yes, I managed. My name is Lydia Hayes, she said. Her voice was soft, gentle. Not what I had expected. Not harsh, not defiant. Just sad. I received your letter. Silence. A long, agonizing silence. Filled only by the frantic pounding of my own heart. I don't know what to say, she continued, her voice trembling slightly. I'm so sorry, Anne. I truly am. Sorry? For what? For loving my husband? For being his real? I need to understand, Lydia, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I need to know everything. She hesitated. I can't do this over the phone. Could we meet, as you suggested? A neutral place. I suggested a cafe in a small town about halfway between us. In Lafayette, Indiana. She agreed. 2 days later, Sarah insisted on coming with me. I was grateful. I didn't know if I could face this alone. The cafe was quiet. A charming place with mismatched chairs and the smell of freshly brewed coffee. I saw her immediately. She was sitting by the window, her back to us, her silver hair catching the light. As she turned, I saw her face. It was the same face from the photographs. The kind eyes, the gentle smile. But now it was etched with a profound sadness. She looked at me, then at Sarah. Recognition and a flicker of pain crossed her features. Anne, she asked, her voice quiet. Yes, I said, my voice a little shaky. And this is my daughter, Sarah. Lydia stood, her hands clasped in front of her. Thank you for coming. We sat. The tension in the air was palpable, thick and suffocating. I didn't know where to begin. She didn't either. Finally, I spoke. The messages, the photographs. I need to know, all of it. Lydia took a deep breath. Her eyes, filled with unshed tears, met mine. Robert and I met 12 years ago. She began, her voice soft, almost a whisper. At a conference in Chicago. He was presenting. I was there for my work as an archivist. We talked. We connected. He told me he was in a difficult marriage, that he loved his children, but his wife, that you were distant, that you had grown apart. A wave of nausea washed over me. He had lied to her too, about us, about our marriage. distant. We were partners. We were a team. He told me he had tried to leave for years, but couldn't bring himself to hurt you. He said he was going to someday, that he just needed time to find the right moment. My mind reeled. He had painted a picture of a long-suffering husband trapped in a loveless marriage, and she had believed him. We fell in love, Lydia continued, her voice breaking. He was kind, attentive. He made me feel seen, understood. We met whenever we could, weekends, during his business trips. We built a life, a quiet life, yes, but real to us. He talked about our future, about us growing old together. I believed him, Anne. I truly believed he would eventually leave you, that we would finally be together openly. Her words cut through me, a double-edged sword. Pain for her, pain for me, the elaborate web of lies he had spun, for both of us. He talked about you often, she said, her voice now barely audible. With respect, with affection even. He said you were a good mother, a good woman, but that the spark was gone, that you were just roommates. Roommates, after 42 years. After building a life, a family, a home, the audacity. I'm so sorry, Lydia repeated, tears now streaming down her face. I never meant to hurt you. I truly believed he was unhappy, that I was helping him find a way out. Sarah, who had been sitting silently, her face pale, reached out and gently took Lydia's hand. He lied to us both, she said, her voice filled with a quiet, devastating anger. He used us both. Lydia looked at Sarah, then back at me. He told me he loved me. He told me I was his real, his true. She paused, her gaze meeting mine, and in her eyes I saw not defiance, but shared pain. And I told him the same. Chapter 5, The Unsent Confession. The air in the cafe grew heavy with unspoken sorrows. Two women, connected by one man's deception, sat across from each other, united in their shared detestation. Lydia, the woman who had believed she was his future. Me, the woman who had believed she was his present, his past, and his forever. He kept a journal, Lydia said, her voice soft, interrupting my thoughts. He started it about 5 years ago. He said he needed a place to process things, his feelings, his dilemma. He kept it hidden. He said it was for me, after he made his choice, after he finally told you. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small leather-bound notebook. It looked old, worn from handling. She handed it to me. He told me to give it to you, she said, her voice barely a whisper. If anything ever happened to him, before he had a chance to tell you himself, he said it would explain everything. He said it was his truth. My hands trembled as I took the diary. Robert's handwriting, the same looping script I had seen on countless birthday cards, grocery lists, and love notes. But these words, these were different. Thank you, I managed, my voice thick with emotion. We stayed for another hour, talking in hushed tones. Lydia told me about their trips, about their shared interests, about the small, stolen moments that had formed the fabric of her secret life with Robert. I told her about our children, about the ordinary beauty of our life, the picnics in the park, the quiet evenings watching movies, the shared laughter. Neither of us knew what to say as we finally prepared to leave. There was no easy resolution, no neat closure, just two women standing on the precipice of a painful, shared reality. I'm so sorry, Anne, Lydia said again, her eyes filling with tears. I truly am. I know, I said, and to my surprise, I found myself reaching out and gently touching her arm. I believe you. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was something close. a shared grief, a mutual understanding of the depth of Robert's deception. Sarah drove us home in silence. The car was heavy with the weight of unsaid things, of revelations that had altered the landscape of our lives forever. When we got back, I went straight to Robert's study. I opened the diary. The first page was dated 5 years ago, August 14th, another day of living a lie. Anne is making her famous lasagna tonight. The kids are coming over. It will be loud, full of laughter, and I will smile. I will be the loving husband, the devoted father, and a part of me will die inside. Lydia, her name is a whisper in my soul, my anchor, my salvation. How do I choose? How do I choose between the comfort of a good life, a good woman, a good family, and the burning intensity of a love that feels like destiny? My stomach clenched. He knew. He knew he was living a lie. I continued to read. Days bled into weeks, weeks into months. His struggle, his agony. He wrote of his profound love for me, for Sarah and David. He wrote of the warmth, the stability, the deep-rooted comfort of our life together. He called me his rock, his foundation. But then the entries would shift. The longing for Lydia, the profound connection he felt with her, the feeling that she truly understood him, saw into his soul in a way no one else ever had. He called her his other half, his unburdening. I am a coward, he wrote. I cannot hurt Anne. She has given me everything. She deserves honesty, not this deception. But I cannot let Lydia go. She breathes life into me. She awakens a part of me I thought was dead. I am trapped, a prisoner of my own making. He wrote about his plan to tell me to leave. The fear that paralyzed him, the fear of causing pain, of shattering our world, of destroying everything he had built. He wrote about his belief that I would never forgive him, that his children would despise him. He was a man torn, not a villain, not entirely, but a weak man, a man who chose the path of least resistance, which ultimately caused the most profound pain. He was a man incapable of hurting those he loved, even if it meant living a lie that hurt everyone. His last entry was just days before his death. The tightness in my chest. It's not just the secret. It's a physical weight. I need to tell her. I need to tell Anne. I need to set us all free. This weekend, I will tell her. I will find the courage. For all of us. And then, I will tell Lydia. It will be devastating. But it is the only way. He never got the chance. His heart gave out. The unspoken truth died with him, and then resurrected itself through his phone. Chapter 6. The unfolding truth. The diary closed. My hand trembled. The anger, though still present, was now tempered by a profound sadness, and a terrible, aching pity. For him, for me, for Lydia. For all of us, caught in the intricate, painful web of his unresolved life. He hadn't been a monster. He had been a man, a flawed man, a man incapable of making an impossible choice. He loved us both, in his own complicated, destructive way. He chose to be a coward. He chose to be a deceiver. And in doing so, he caused unimaginable pain. But he also carried his own torment, his own desperate struggle. Sarah and I sat together later that evening, the diary between us. We talked for hours about him, about us, about Lydia, about the nature of love, of truth, of forgiveness. He was always so good at compartmentalizing, Sarah said, her voice quiet. His work, his hobbies, his family life. He could switch off, just like that. Yes, I agreed. He was. I just never realized how deeply he applied that to his emotional life. The process of grieving him started anew. But this time, it was different. It was grieving a stranger, a ghost. And then, slowly, grieving the man I thought I knew. And finally, grieving the flawed, complex human being he truly was. It was messy, it was painful, but it was real. Lydia called a few days later. Her voice was still soft, but there was a new strength there. We talked about the diary, about his torment. I truly believed he loved me, Lydia said, her voice thick with emotion. That I was his future, and now to know he was so torn, it doesn't lessen the pain, but it helps to understand. He loved you, I said, surprising myself with the words. In his own way, he just couldn't choose. An unexpected bond began to form between us. Two women, united by betrayal, but also by a shared grief and a mutual need for understanding. We exchanged emails, shared memories of him, the good and the bad. It was cathartic, strange, and yet profoundly healing. We had both been manipulated. We had both been loved. We had both been hurt, and we both needed to heal. Sarah, my rock, found her own path to acceptance. She processed the anger, the disillusionment, and slowly began to build a new, more nuanced understanding of her father. Not as a hero, but as a complex, imperfect man who made terrible choices. The house, once a sanctuary, now felt different. It was no longer a place of absolute safety and unquestioning love. It held the echoes of a secret life, but it also held the echoes of forgiveness, of healing. One day, Lydia called. "I'm coming to Chicago for a conference," she said. Would you like to meet for coffee? No agenda, just to talk, if you're up for it." I hesitated. Then a quiet certainty settled within me. "Yes, Lydia," I said. "I would like that very much." Chapter 7. The Uncharted Future. We met, not in a neutral town, but in a small cafe near my home. It was a step, a leap of faith. We talked about our lives, about our families, about our shared experience. The raw edges of betrayal had softened, replaced by a quiet empathy. "I still have my moments," Lydia confessed, her voice soft. "The anger, the questions. But knowing his struggle, it helps. It truly does." "Me too," I admitted. "The anger is still there, but it's not all-consuming anymore. It's like a scar. It's there, but it doesn't ache constantly." We talked about the future, about what comes next. Neither of us had answers, but for the first time, we were talking about it together. Two women, once adversaries, now finding common ground in the ashes of a shared illusion. My relationship with Sarah deepened immeasurably. We were no longer just mother and daughter. We were partners in truth, survivors of a shared deception. We helped each other navigate the complex emotions, the lingering questions. We held each other up when the pain threatened to overwhelm us. Life moved on. The silence in the house was still there, but it was no longer heavy with grief or anger. It was simply silence, a canvas on which to paint new memories. I started taking art classes, something I'd always wanted to do but put off during Robert's illness and then my grief. I joined a book club. I reconnected with old friends. I began to forge a new life for myself. A life built on my own terms, no longer defined by the man I thought I knew or the life I thought I had. The memory of Robert would always be complex. He was the loving husband, the devoted father. And he was the man who led a double life, who broke my heart and Lydia's. But I learned to hold both truths, to accept the imperfection of human beings, even the ones we love most. The diary, Robert's final confession, sat on my bedside table, not as a weapon, but as a testament to his humanity, to his flaws, to his inability to make a choice, and to the enduring, complicated nature of love itself. Lydia and I didn't become best friends. That would be too much. But we maintained a respectful, understanding connection, occasional calls, an annual coffee meeting when she was in town, a quiet acknowledgement of our shared history, our unexpected bond. The pain of the betrayal would always be a part of me. It had changed me, hardened me in some ways, but also opened my eyes to the complexities of human relationships, to the hidden depths of grief, and to the surprising resilience of the human heart. The house, our home for 42 years, was no longer just Robert's house or my house. It was a house that held the echoes of a secret, yes, but also the echoes of healing, of resilience, of a new beginning. I looked out at the garden, at the flowers Robert had planted, now blooming in riotous color. The sun was setting, casting long, golden shadows across the lawn. The silence was still there, but now it felt different. It felt like possibility. It felt like peace. It felt like truth. And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly, unequivocally free.